Hi, I'm Dr. Sadhna Bokhiria, and this is Leader Voices, a show about leaders and their infinite ability to change the world. Each episode in Leader Voices, we dig into stories and sparks from for-purpose leaders, coaches, comedians, luminaries, and everyday heroes from around the globe. Tales of impact and failing forward, of aspirations and innovations, and the infinite and inspiring ways that social purpose leaders lead and make the world a better place. Join us today as we introduce a new guest. It is my great pleasure to have a really special guest on Leader Voices today. Anupam is a physician executive with over 19 years of experience in the pharmaceutical industry, following more than a decade in academic medicine and private practice in the United States. He holds an MPH in clinical research from Harvard and has led clinical development and safety programs across multiple therapeutic areas at leading global companies, including, of course, all of the heavy hitters, GSK, Pfizer, Gilead, as well as innovative biotech such as Zogenix and De Nova Biopharma. He currently serves as a mentor and a leader on the board and is the incoming president of the Harvard Club of San Francisco. He's an active cardiovascular science research consortium member, a public-private think tank focused on advancing cardiovascular drug device and diagnostic development. There's so many accolades that I don't want to miss. Anupam also brings deep engagement with the investment community. He's been an angel investor for more than a decade, is a member of HBS's Alumni Angels of the Northern California chapter, and is a limited partner in a biotech-focused venture capital firm. His career, as you can see, spans from clinical medicine, academic research, industry leadership, and venture investing, and he offers a unique multidisciplinary perspective that bridges science, strategy, and innovation in healthcare. And he is the perfect guest for our audience, and welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for giving me such a glorious, and I am at loss of word, such a wonderful introduction. And it is my pleasure to join you for this podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think a great place to start is really just right at the beginning. How did you get into medicine, and basically how did your early years shape your career and just incredible impact in the world and healthcare in particular?
Okay, so maybe I will expand this question a little bit, because for some of your viewers, this would be a very interesting tidbit. So if I go back in my 11th grade, there was a botany teacher. He was very accomplished. He had a very popular book for botany. And I remember he was telling essential elements for the plant growth. And he said, we can take a growing plant, and analyze what are different elements. But he says that doesn't prove that these elements are essential for plant growth. We can take away one by one and then determine whether it affects the plant growth. And I don't know why that particular lesson or that class, I think my scientific curiosity started from that point. I become very, very curious. I was very fascinated the way he described how any scientific experiment is conducted. So now coming back to your question, honestly speaking, as you know, in India, after grade 12, you decide whether to go for engineering or to go into medicine. I mean, at that time you decide, and you sit for the pre-medical test or for engineering test. I was very young at that time, and I didn't have any idea where I want to go. But my mom, though she never pressed me, I overheard when she used to talk to my aunts or other relatives that she wants me to become a doctor.
Surprise.
Yeah. So that's how I went into medicine. And I don't think I regret making that decision. It was a very, very rewarding career. And now coming back to early in my career, when I practiced very briefly in India and Saudi Arabia, the difference was, if I compare from the US, the volume of patient you see in a day. Because when I started, there was no electronic medical record. In India at that time, it was patient's responsibility to keep the record. Uh,
Wow.
it sounds very strange, but so because of that, you can see many, many patients in an hour. The volume was very, very high. And in comparison to maybe US, at that time in India, there was lot of respect for physician. I mean, in US, I also find that if you go to smaller places, like I practiced in Alabama for a number of years, there also I see the same thing. They have too much respect for physicians. So these were the difference.
Interesting. So let me just kind of break that down a little bit. So one thing that really stands out to me is this concept that when you started medicine, there was no electronic health record and patients were responsible for maintaining their own records. And of course, in India, with the vast kind of gap in literacy, if you're part of a low literacy community, particularly my family historically is part of a low literacy community, so they don't know how to read or write in any language. So, you're talking about communities that don't even have birth certificates. Most of the people are born at home. How was that experience knowing that they were responsible for their own medical records if they don't even have like the ability?
It's an interesting question. I have seen and I have done also. So after writing a particular drug, for example, I am giving Zyrtec. So Zyrtec once a day, then I will make a symbol that that pill is once a day. Those medications which patient is supposed to take 3 times a day, I will make a picture of three small circle. I have not done that, but I have seen other physicians within parenthesis, they write in Hindi, for example, if they know that that patient read Hindi, then they will write within parenthesis. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, when we look at different countries and the way in which they design hospitals in particular, the emphasis on having imagery. So even now, when we in the United States talk about medical education, they say, it should be at like the 7th grade level, 5th grade level. It shouldn't be at a level where your general population can't understand the medical education. And so it's really incredible that you're highlighting that you're using imagery and pictures for communities that really need that extra help, and really kind of speaks volumes as to the type of doctor you are to kind of go that extra length. So what happened when EHRs kind of changed the game and entered in, like, how was that a transition for you, if at all?
Let me go back. So when I was training in the US, and I am ancient, so I was doing a residency in Chicago. And in 1996, our training hospital was North Chicago VA hospital. And in 1996, they instituted electronic medical record, which was, according to them, they were the first or second veteran administration hospital in the country to introduce that. And in other hospital or in other healthcare system, it was still not implemented. I think electronic medical record became commonly used in 2005-6, somewhat around
So
that
new.
time. Yeah. So in many ways, it was it was an important step because we can go back and quickly search the prior admissions and whatever the investigation have been done in the past.
Mhm.
Because in paper chart, you were restricted to what the current hospitalization record is. I still remember in the VA hospital, most of the veterans, used to be getting care in the same hospital for a long time. When a patient used to be admitted, they used to send a paper chart, and it used to be a huge stack of charts.
Mhm.
And think about it, we have to go through everything if we want to know what other investigation have been done, imaging, lab wise. So in many, many ways, it was a very important step. And as I will not go into deep for research purposes, it was also a very, very useful tool.
Right. No, so it's so interesting because naturally my mind goes into you've been able to experience, you're one of the forerunners of the AI. You were writing and posting, you have a book coming up about AI, and you were writing about it, 10 years ago, like more than that. So, what I'm thinking is you've had such a unique experience as a medical professional because you were in a time where patients were responsible for their own records. Then you're, experiencing the paper trail of their non-electronic health records. And then working in the VA, experiencing the shift to EHR. And so knowing that EHR systems are really standard for about 20 years. And with AI, I wonder what you project the future of EHR to look like.
I mean, this would be, when I say I am not exaggerating, it is a watershed moment, the advent of artificial intelligence. And you will see within next decade or maybe sooner how it is going to impact various aspects of clinical care as well as clinical research. The impact will be huge, huge. I mean, one common example, there are some application. Basically, when you go to a physician's office, he takes history. So this application will be listening to your conversation, and it will transcribe that conversation into a beautiful medical history. That's seems like a very small step, but that is huge. Nothing will be missed because most of the time, as a physician, we are depending on our memory to capture everything what went on.
Yes, so fascinating. I wonder if across health systems and across different organizations, you'd be able to truly get a full patient history. So the patient history isn't so fragmented from, let's say, state to state or health system to health system, doctor to doctor. It doesn't seem far fetched that the AI would flag questions such as, based on this history, have you considered this diagnosis? Have you considered this testing? Because there's a pattern and a trend that the AI is connecting that I think humans might not be able to do, especially with the workload. When you have so many patients, it's like that level of razor focus, and the algorithm in itself is mind.
Yes. There are many, many companies who are working in this field. In fact, I am advising to one of the company, and without going into some of the confidential information, they are in a rare disease area. And the whole hypothesis, so to speak, is that with the help of AI, they will able to stitch together whatever medical information is available for that patient from disparate sources. And then in the back, they, with the help of AI, they will able to diagnose, because the fact is, for a rare disease, sometimes it takes years before a patient is diagnosed.
Right.
Because, symptoms are vague, or, physician is not considering. Yeah, with the help of uh, AI and Web3 and tokenization, we can keep the patient information confidential and able to stitch together the medical information which lies in different system, different hospital, and basically we can stitch it together. And that was the whole hypothesis. This company I'm advising, they are in a rare disease area. That's what they are going to do.
Yeah, it's incredible because with rare disease, as you wisely mentioned, there's a huge delay in diagnosis or there's a misdiagnosis, and you have doctors who are not familiar. And it's many times a multidisciplinary disease. So you have different types of doctors seeing the patient, not knowing to possibly test for something else or to refer them. So having that level of AI incorporation into that treatment modality, I think will be really helpful for many patients who unfortunately haven't had that level of EHR deep dives to be able to integrate all of that data. So really fascinating. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and just talk to you because one of the things that really stood out to me is your vast experience across different sectors. And you started at Harvard, academic research, and then, you went into pharma. So going from an academic position to pharmaceutical executive, how was that transition?
So that transition, honestly speaking, was very difficult. For whatever reason, I want to stay in academia. I love that. In fact, I tell people that when I came to this country, this was my dream to become a professor at a big university to do medical research. And when I joined academia, that was a very difficult time for academic research. So, as you know, in 2002, when Junior Bush became president, he also made a drastic cut in the NIH budget.
Oh, interesting.
And because of that, at that time, I didn't have my independent grant. I was dependent on my mentor's grant. And for the first time in 25 years, his grant was denied. So that was a wake up call for most of the fellows. And one of my mentor, he advised me that why don't you look at industry? You will be happy there. And I was not convinced. So he gave me contact information of 6 to 8 fellows. And he told me, like you, they want to stay in academia. They switch to industry. Just talk to them and ask them how happy or unhappy they are. So that's what I did. So one of the a major difference is in academia, whatever idea you have, if you can secure the funding from NIH, you can pursue that. In industry, as you know, if that particular idea does not have commercial viability, there is not a 1% chance that you will be able to pursue that. So,
yeah, it's fascinating. I remember when we first spoke, you were mentioning that essentially in academia, idea is king.
Yeah.
But in pharma, ideas are a dime a dozen. And so they really are focused on the outcome, whereas in academia, they're really fueling curiosity and hypotheses and experimental design.
Yeah, I mean that is my experience. I don't want to paint this picture for everyone. I have been told many times this thing, so that's why I am saying.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're necessary. You have to have the idea and the experiment in order to get to the outcome. So it's almost like the way that you're explaining it is almost as if it's a trajectory of the beginning to the end. And of course, the end, you're going to have a lower percentage of outcome, especially with pharma, because it takes so much failure in a positive way in order to determine what is safe and what is appropriate for final commercialization or mass, usage.
I mean, I can speak in favor of maybe industry also or academia. In some ways, in pharmaceutical industry, they have made this drug development so efficient, which is not possible in academia. In academia, most of the time, the person who is doing the research is playing multiple roles, which is not possible. In industry, every aspect of the research have a separate division, and those people are doing that particular job. For example, I started in drug safety and pharmacovigilance. So that's one department. Drug development is another. Then medical affairs is another department. Biostatistics is another department. And then preclinical development, that is another one. So in some ways, pharmaceutical industry is more efficient to execute the idea to a marketed drug.
Right. And it should be, right? It's a multi-trillion-dollar sector. It should be focused on, getting from point A to point B in an efficient way and to go through all the different sectors. What was some of the biggest leadership lessons that you had to unlearn and relearn when you made the jump from academia to industry?
There were numerous lessons which I learned. Maybe I was a slow learner, or I didn't know. I was too naive when I joined industry. So basically, I learned which is applicable not to the pharmaceutical industry, but I believe it is applicable to every industry, which is how to influence. Because in pharmaceutical industry, we are working in a matrix environment. So a crude analogy is, if the final product is a car, then a different group or division are making different parts, and finally it is assembled. That is a big difference, because in academia, as I told you, majority of the things you are doing yourself. Then how to apply emotional intelligence. Another lesson I learned, that perception is more important, and you need to manage your perception. And the last one is one term which is very commonly used in industry. You need to have buy-in from whatever your group is. That was a very hard lesson to learn, that you need to identify the people who will influence that decision, and how to seek buy-in from those individuals.
Any advice from your experience for our guests? Because what you're talking about is across all sectors, right?
Yes,
all
yes.
leadership positions, not specific to pharma. It's also in life. I mean, I feel like even in normal, day-to-day aspects, when you want to get things done, you have to achieve buy-in of the stakeholders that are involved. If you're a parent, you have to do this with the kids. You have to figure out how to influence them to do, what you want them to do. What advice do you have? Because that is a timeless.
Yes. So this is I learned after reading countless books, going to countless seminar, some through my work and some outside of my work. So basically, you need to identify what motivates that person, because what ends up happening, you know what motivates you. And you try to apply same thing when you want to motivate other person, not realizing that motivators in that person may be totally different. For example, for good or bad, if you need to motivate me to go to a seminar or a conference, you need to tell me, Anupam, if you will go to that seminar, you will learn new things, how AI can be applied or whatever can be applied. That would be a big motivator for me. For another person, that is not his priority, that not what motivates him. Maybe he is motivated by networking, that he will meet new people and that will increase his network. So to motivate him, you need to, for lack of a better word, you need to apply that or play that card. So that is what I have learned. And it is not easy to find what motivates a particular person. You have to gingerly, or in some ways, you need to ask question to identify what motivates them.
Hmm. So I have to ask you, I know that you've been told throughout your life that there are things that you could never accomplish in your lifetime that you have accomplished. What are one of those moments that still fuels your drive? Because when you look at your bio and me just stuttering through it, I'm like, there's so much happening here. Like, how are you doing it? What drives you? And do you take a moment to look back and say, I have done so much that I never could have imagined?
Yes, fortunately, I went to a seminar a long time ago, and one of the exercise was the speaker asked all of us to make a list of things which at one time were dream and now a reality. And the purpose of that exercise was to motivate everyone, because each of us have achieved so much. And those people who are motivated, somehow they try to remember what they have done, not, thinking about all those failures. Because honestly speaking, majority of us have lot of success and even a bigger list of failures. That's life.
Right.
But to answer your question, I try to remember that list. Some of those things you will not even believe I listed. One is, which is very funny. At the time I grew up in India, there were no credit cards at that time. So for the first time, when I received my first credit card when I came to US, you cannot believe, I took out from my wallet every 15 minutes to see my name is on the credit card. So what I'm trying to say, sometimes those are very, very small things, but those were like a dream to you at that moment. So yeah.
No, that's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. It is interesting because you forget those moments where it seems so small, but as you're growing and becoming who you are, those moments are what build who you are inevitably. And I love the idea of taking time to make a list of the things that were once your dreams that you conquered.
Yeah.
You're celebrating your wins. And it's a very powerful exercise that a lot of research, book after book after book, have proven that it changes your neurology and it changes your perspective, which allows you to have momentum to continue to kind of drive. And so it gives you more energy when you take a moment to reflect on those wins or those things that were once, complete dreams. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So, what advice would you give people who are interested in leadership positions or who want to break into leadership, but kind of feel like intimidated or like an outsider?
One advice I will give, try to find mentors. Throughout my career, especially if I step back in academia as well as in pharmaceutical industry, especially early on in my career, I have multiple advisors. You cannot believe what does that to you, because you are learning from these individuals who have spent their whole career 30, 40 years learning about those things, and they are giving that gift to you, which you can learn in half an hour or 1 hour. So that was very, very big. The second thing I would advise, which I have done a lot, I am a voracious reader. I read a lot. I attended many, many seminars to learn leadership skill, because, as you know, leadership is a very nebulous concept. You cannot scientifically break down into components and try to learn. I mean, I agree this is a science, but there is a lot of art into leadership.
Yeah.
And there are conflicting opinion. I mean, just for example, many times this is the advice: you need to be authentic. And many times I heard from the people who were my direct report that if I am doing that, I am not authentic. So you need to understand that without being inauthentic, you have to mold yourself in that kind of situation. It is not if you are acting according to the situation, you are becoming inauthentic.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more in terms of the power of finding mentors, people who champion for you. And I think it's also like it's a very rewarding experience for the mentor to be able to share that breadth of knowledge that they've accumulated throughout their careers and their life, and to be able to help someone possibly in a way that someone helped them, or possibly in a way in which they hoped someone would have helped them when they were trying to kind of navigate the complexities of professional and personal development. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is something that really moved me. So, my mom is my everything. She's my best friend in the whole world. She is the reason why I am who I am. And I'm proud of who I am because I think about how she completely taught me everything that matters in life without really even trying. It feels like she wasn't trying. And you spoke about this fire that your mom gave you. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about your mom and how she instilled that fire in you, and then how you're essentially passing that fire along.
Okay, so when we were talking offline, I told you this concept that you always crave love of one of your parent, either mom or dad. And I want to make our listener totally understand, this is not whose love you got most. So in my example, my mom was I still believe she's the most loving person in my life, without any exception. Still, I used to crave her love more, despite she was so loving. So, what happens? The parent whose love you crave more, you become the person that particular parents want from you. To give a real life example, for my mom to be a good son, I need to be first in the class. That was her only requirement, that I should be. So, what happens? You become that person. And many times I think why I have this insatiable desire to be number one, because sometimes it is, for example, if I am in a group, why I have this desire to be the best in that group, because sometimes that is not a very useful thing. So I believe that drive was instilled by my mom unknowingly, and I think I still carry that desire in me. Yeah.
It's incredible. I relate so much in a different way. And I wonder, how do you pass that on to new leaders, to your children? How do you teach that? Because one of the things that I'm hearing repeatedly is, so your mom loved you, showed you all the love. It wasn't something lacking from her. It's that you craved her love. And it was very clear that it's important to her that you're first in class, that you're a doctor. And so you essentially became that person because you, in your love for her, you crave that love. And so you become molded into this person that your mom values.
Yes, yes.
And so she's not telling you this is what you have to do in this prescriptive kind of way to say, but it shaped you. You understood from the nuances of your unspoken dialogue and relationship that this is important to my mom. And I love my mom so much. And I want to be that son, right? Like I want to be a great son to my mom. How do you teach that?
That's a very difficult thing, because I have realized, based on my own daughter or my niece and nephew, I don't know it is possible that you can mold that they desire or crave love of a particular parent. This happen at subconscious level, and what I have realized,
It's a tough one.
um, I would say I don't think I have an answer how one can do that, because this is something I don't know, maybe inborn or
Mm. Yeah, it's so interesting. It's
yeah.
so interesting as a parent, as a daughter. It's like I'm very much interested, and I totally relate to what you're saying because I know that many of my personality traits are a direct result of exactly what you're talking about. So it's great if maybe some of our listeners will share, what they think might be some of the ways in which you can pass that on. Yeah. Well, I want to talk a little bit about AI before we kind of wrap things up. But what I wanted to say is you have a book coming out and you've been talking about AI in medicine for more than a decade, long before everyone was talking about AI. What's your current take on how AI is transforming drug safety or clinical research, helping us make safer medications?
Okay, so as I told you before, I think this is a watershed moment for AI in clinical research. So every aspect of clinical research will be affected by artificial intelligence. So right from the candidate selection. So majority of the time, based on disease pathology, you identify a receptor or gene or an enzyme, and then based on that knowledge, you identify a drug. So this target selection process can be expedited. Then there are various steps. One step is you try to manufacture a molecule which have desirable properties. So maybe 2 weeks ago there was a company name is Inductive Bio. They have come up with a model and they claim they can identify the admet. So admet is an acronym. So basically the absorption, distribution, metabolism, excretion, and toxicity of a drug. You try to make a molecule which have these desirable properties. So with the help of AI, they were able to expedite this process. Then when a research moved into the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 in patient to identify the patient, believe it or not, or I have been involved in diabetes research. Diabetes, which is so prevalent in the US, is still very, very difficult to complete the enrollment in a desired time frame. This process of patient enrollment can also be expedited by the artificial intelligence. So to make it short, every aspect of the drug development will be affected by AI, and hopefully in next 5 or 10 years we will see all the fruits of this process. There are multiple companies who are doing this work on different aspect of the drug development. So
Yeah,
yes.
it's a very exciting time to imagine. I go back to kind of the beginning of our conversation where we talked about, the responsibility of the patient chart on the patient. They're bringing in papers and the doctor is essentially, diagnosing them. And then the implementation of EHR in the 1990s. And then, basically going into it being widespread in the early 2000s, and how now 2025 AI at the very, 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 very beginning of their capabilities, and then just looking at all the different ways in which it'll take, I would say, something that would have previously taken, 20, 30, 40 years, 5 years, 2 years, like even just in the last couple of weeks, the developments, the rapid acceleration and implementation of these tools, it's fascinating, really exciting.
Yes.
That's so great to talk to you. So great to have you on the show. For our listeners, we will have a link to your book, a link to different ways that we can follow all the different amazing things that you're doing, your organizations, and different ways that we can kind of keep in touch with you and follow your great work. I want to thank you for everything that you've done globally to impact patients, impact the industry, impact academia, and for taking the time to really connect with us today. I had such a great time talking with you, Anupam. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for inviting me, and I really enjoyed this talk.
Thank you all for joining us. I'm Dr. Sadhna Bokhiria, and this is Leader Voices. This show is brought to you by the American Express Leadership Academy Alumni Network and leaderstories.org. Leader Voices is audio engineered by Robbie Ladd and produced by Creepandian team at OTVO Digital. Special thanks to Caitlin Johnson and Michael Chang. Thank you, and see you in the next episode.